Hi folks, it's Mike Murphy, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add a custom domain name that you already own on a registrar such as GoDaddy and add it to your Hostinger VPS. When you first set up your Hostinger VPS with the self-hosted version of n8n, the way that you typically launch n8n is to sign in your Hostinger VPS dashboard. On the Overview tab, you click on Manage App. But if you look in the address bar, it's kind of an ugly URL that you're never going to remember. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just create your own custom URL that would open n8n or any other app that you have on your VPS? So for me, when I type in flow.imurf.com, so imurf.com is my custom domain. Flow is the subdomain that I created that will open n8n. So I tap return, and that takes me right to n8n from any web browser anywhere in the world. After you set up a custom domain and create a subdomain to open n8n, the Manage App button in your VPS dashboard is no longer going to be mapped to n8n. So when you click on the Manage App, it is not going to open n8n. You are going to take any domain name that you already own. Any domain register is fine. You're then going to add the custom domain name in your Hostinger VPS dashboard in the DNS Manager. Once you add a custom domain, for me, I added the custom domain imurf.com. That unlocks your ability to be able to create unlimited subdomains. So the subdomain is the word that you see right before your custom domain or your root domain. So I created a subdomain called Flow. So the full URL that I can put in a browser is flow.imurf.com, and that is going to open up my self-hosted version of n8n. I created another subdomain called Chat. So the full URL that I can put in a browser is chat.imurf.com, and that opens up a Streamlit app that I created on my VPS when I first set up my Hostinger VPS. I thought that when I added a custom domain, because I pointed my custom domain to the IP address of my VPS, that it was going to open up my Hostinger VPS dashboard. But that is not the case. And for security reasons, you really don't want it to be that way. And you'll only create subdomains for apps and services on your VPS that are web-facing or that require a browser to access them. When I first added my custom domain, imurf.com, to my Hostinger VPS, the first subdomain that I created was n8n. That way, I could just enter n8n.imurf.com in a web browser, and that would open up n8n. Every time I tried to access n8n using my new n8n.imurf.com URL, Google Chrome flagged the site as malicious, put up this big, ugly red warning page telling me that if I proceeded, I was going to be attacked by all sorts of monsters. Trust me when I say that I tried just about everything to fix this. No luck. Now, my AI friends did have some good theories, though, on why n8n as a subdomain might get flagged by Google. So, my fix was just to try and create another subdomain. So, I created a subdomain Flow for workflows. It wasn't my favorite, but it was short. I entered flow.imurf.com in Google Chrome. n8n opened instantly. No ugly red warning message. I have not seen this warning since. Step 1, we're going to add a custom domain to your Hostinger VPS dashboard in the DNS Manager tab. Step 2, you're going to sign in to your domain registrar. So where did you purchase the custom domain that you want to use? You'll sign into the registrar and change the name servers for the domain to the Hostinger NameServers. Step 3, return to the Hostinger VPS dashboard in the DNS Manager, and we're going to point the new custom domain to the IP address of the VPS. Step 4, we add an A record for n8n. Step 5, we're going to update the n8n docker-compose.yml file by setting the environment variables. Step 6, we're going to spin up a new n8n Docker container with all of the changes that we made in Step 5. In step 7, we're going to go to the firewall rules and just confirm that we have ports 80 and 443 open. And step 8, we're going to test our new custom URL in a web browser and make sure that it opens n8n and that the connection is using SSL, so we know that our connection is secure. If you watched my tutorial on how to set up a Hostinger VPS with n8n, well, this is the VPS that I created in that tutorial. Step 1, add a custom domain name that you already own and is not currently in use. In a web browser, I'll go to hostinger.com, I'll go to the top right corner and click on My Account. Sign in using your Hostinger account information. To get to the VPS, I can click VPS in the left sidebar or just go down to the shortcut where it says VPS, I'll click on Manage. And to add a custom domain, go to the left sidebar and click on DNS Manager. In the top section, Add Domain, you're just going to click in the field and enter your custom domain name. For me, I'm going to add aipilgrim.com. And then just click on Add. You will then get a pop-up with instructions to log in to your domain registrar. Now, Hostinger auto-detected that the domain name that I entered was on GoDaddy. So it's telling me to log into my GoDaddy account, look for the domain settings for aipilgrim.com, and change the name servers from the default GoDaddy name servers to the Hostinger name servers. Just as an FYI, if you accidentally close this pop-up, so if I click the X and I'm like, oh no, I didn't copy the Hostinger name servers, don't worry, all you have to do is just click on Connect Domain and that'll open up that pop-up again. I'm going to copy this first Hostinger name server to my clipboard by just clicking on this little icon. You'll see a little success message at the very top. If you compare the two Hostinger name servers, you'll see the only difference between them is the first one has the number 1, the second one has the number 2. So I have the first one copied to my clipboard. When I add that to GoDaddy, I should be able to remember the difference when it comes time to add in the second one. I am now signed in to GoDaddy. I just clicked on my profile icon in the top right corner, clicked on My Products, located my domains, did a search for aipilgrim.com, opened it up, and then clicked on DNS to take me into the DNS settings. In this top row here, I'm going to click on NameServers. The NameServers are currently set to the default GoDaddy NameServers, but we're going to change those to the Hostinger NameServers by clicking on Change NameServers. Tick the radio button for I'll use my own NameServers, and then you're going to paste in that first Hostinger name server that should be copied to your clipboard, so Command V to paste. I'm going to paste it again. Remember, I just need to change one thing, so let's click in and change it to 2. Then I'm going to click on Save. I'll click Continue. GoDaddy is telling me that they're updating the name servers. I can click Refresh to check for updates, so I'll just click Refresh. Perfect. The name servers for aipilgrim.com are now set to the Hostinger name servers. We can now return to the Hostinger VPS, so I'm in the DNS Manager. I'm going to do a refresh, Command or Control R. Bingo. The status changed from pending to active. The name servers are now active on our new custom domain. Nice job. We have completed step 1 and step 2. We are now on to step 3, where we're going to edit the DNS for our new custom domain and point it to the VPS IP address. To find your VPS IP address, in the VPS Dashboard, you're going to click on Overview. You're going to go down to where it says Root Access, and this number right here is your VPS IP address. I'll select it, press Command-C to copy it. I'll go back to the DNS Manager. So there's my custom domain. I'm going to come over here and click on Edit DNS. Scroll down to the bottom section and you're looking for the A record. There should only be one A record when you first add your custom domain. So there it is at the very bottom. I'm going to click on Edit. I'm going to change the points to my VPS IP address. So I'm going to paste it in, Command-V. And then I'm going to change the TTL from the current 50, and I'm going to change that to 300. That's 5 minutes. That's just a good standard for this A record. So I'll click Update. Now the A record for our custom domain is pointing to our VPS IP address. We have completed step 3, and now we're on to step 4. This is where we're creating the subdomain. So the word before your custom domain that is going to open n8n. And to do that, all we need to do is add an A record in the same DNS Manager where we just completed step 3. You are going to need your VPS IP address to add the A record, so just make sure that you have the VPS IP address still copied to your clipboard. And now all we have to do is click on Edit DNS. And just as an FYI, if you ever want to remove a custom domain that you added, if you click on the stacking 3 dots there, you can click on Remove, but I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to click on Edit DNS. Now we need to add a new A record. You add records to your DNS settings by clicking on the drop-down menu, choosing the type of record that you want to add. So we want to add A, we'll keep it at A. For the name, this is your subdomain name. Now remember, I am not going to use n8n because I had a lot of issues for that. So I'm just going to keep it at flow, but you can name it anything you want. In the points to field, you're going to enter in the IP address of your VPS. I'm going to paste in my VPS IP. I'll keep the TTL at 14,400 seconds, which, by the way, is 4 hours. I'll click Add Record. Do I want to add an additional A record? Yes, I do. I'll click Confirm. You should now have 2 A records, and they should both be pointing to your VPS IP address. If you are new to editing DNS records, so if all of this just looks totally foreign to you, a good little side tip or a thing to know. Whenever you see the @ symbol in the name column, the @ symbol is the same thing as your root domain, or the domain name that you are currently editing the DNS settings for. So anytime you add a new record, let's just say that I wanted to add a new TXT record. Instead of having to type out AI Pilgrim every time, my root domain name, all I need to do is just enter in the @ symbol. That means the same thing. Now, I know that this A record is not referencing our root domain because it has the name of flow and not an @ symbol. And if I scroll to the bottom, you'll see that this A record is the one that is referencing our root or our custom domain because it has that @ symbol. And I'm telling you this because you're only going to have one A record that points to your root domain or your custom domain. So if you try to add another A record and you keep the @ symbol, so if I put in my VPS IP address and click Add Record, I'm going to get an error message saying that this record already exists. So I just need to change the name from the @ symbol or the root domain to any other domain that's not listed. So I can't add flow, but I could do flow2 if I wanted. And that's going to create a new A record and a new subdomain. And again, you can create as many subdomains as you want. They just have to have different names. We have added a new custom domain. We have created an A record with the subdomain flow. But now we need to go to step 5 and update the n8n docker-compose.yml file to set the environment variables so it knows that when we enter in flow.aipilgrim.com to open up n8n. If you're on the overview page of your VPS dashboard, to get to the Docker Manager, you can go to the n8n section and click on Docker Manager, or in the sidebar of the VPS dashboard, just click on Docker Manager and choose Projects. If I twirl open this root, you'll see there are 2 containers. This is the Docker container that contains the n8n application, and this is for Trafic. Trafic has to do with reverse proxy. This is what directs traffic that comes to the VPS. Now, I have a tutorial coming up about what is Trafic, so I'm not going to go into any detail, but I just wanted to point out that this is the n8n Docker container. Now, because I want flow.aipilgrim.com to open up n8n, well, you just need to make sure that you update the docker-compose YAML file for the Docker stack that contains the application that you want to open. To edit the docker-compose YAML file, I'll click on Manage. Then I'm going to click the button .yaml or YAML editor. At the top is Traefik and then n8n. They are combined together in the same docker-compose YAML file. Let me just show you how this works. So this left box is the YAML editor. These are the actual changes that we're going to be making to the docker-compose.yml file. The right box is the environment box. So these are the environment variables that we're changing. We are on step 5, which says to set the environment variables. So how the heck do we do that? Well, back here in the YAML editor, anywhere that you see the curly brackets, these are the environment variables. And we can see the current values of these variables over here in this right box called environment. One of the many things that Traefik does on your Hostinger VPS is it makes it super easy to get a Let's Encrypt SSL certificate for your custom domains. So you can use HTTPS. So you get that little lock in the browser indicating that your connection is secure. In order for Traefik to be able to get an SSL certificate issued from Let's Encrypt, you're going to need to add a valid email address to this line right here. Now, if I wanted to, I could just manually type in a new email address. So I type in mike@myemail.com, and that would work. But I'm going to undo that. Remember, the curly brackets are variables. So this is like a dynamic placeholder. So if I come over here to the environment box where I see SSL email, the current value for SSL email is this email address right here, user@whatever. So anywhere there's a variable that says SSL email, it is using this value. So all I need to do is just update or change the value in the environment variable box over here to my email. So I'm going to put ai.mikemurphy@gmail.com. And now, anywhere there's an SSL email wrapped in the curly brackets, it's going to automatically use this email address that I have in this environment variables box. And just as an FYI, if you set up your Hostinger VPS a while ago, and maybe you're not seeing anything in the environment box, well, you can just manually make the changes that I'm making now. This is just making things a little bit faster and easier. So the only changes that we need to make in the Traefik section of the docker-compose YAML file is for this one line of certificate resolvers. Just make sure that you add a valid email address. Most of the changes that we're going to make are in the second section, n8n. The first thing that I'm going to do, since it's at the very top, is I'm just going to delete this port section. It's no longer needed when you add a custom domain, and by keeping the ports 5, 6, 7, 8 for n8n open for localhost, you're just adding unnecessary vulnerability. So by deleting this, you're just locking down your VPS and making sure this port is not open. Now, if you don't want to delete the lines and you just want to keep them there for reference, or maybe as a just in case you ever want to go back to the original settings, well, you can also just comment out the lines by just simply entering in a hashtag. So Shift 3, and when it turns to green, that indicates that these lines are commented out. They are not doing anything. The changes that we're going to make in the n8n section are any line where you see the environment variables, subdomain, and domain name. Now, before we make the changes to the variables in the n8n section, I just want to show you what is happening with the default settings, as I think this is going to help you connect all the dots. The domain name to open n8n is currently set to this srv 117.289.hostinger.cloud, okay? This long, ugly URL. And the subdomain is n8n. So the subdomain, remember, is the word that goes before the domain name. Now, I told you not to use n8n, but apparently Hostinger can get away with it. So if I select this default domain name that is currently set up, Command-C, I'll put it in a browser window. Now, if I put the subdomain before it, n8n dot, when I tap return, n8n should open. There we go. We will get this same URL If we launch n8n from the VPS dashboard by clicking on the Manage App button, which is currently working because we haven't yet updated the Docker Compose file, so when I click this, n8n is going to launch and it's the same URL. So this is the domain name and n8n is the subdomain. So we are going to replace this with the custom domain here in the subdomain that we created with the A record. And for all the nerds out there who are trying to learn more technical skills and build on your developer knowledge, well, it's the only change that you made right now was deleting these ports or commenting them out like they are right now. If you updated the Docker Compose YAML file right now without making any other changes, by removing these, that would break this Manage App button, as this is for local launching n8n on ports 5, 6, 7, 8. But you would still be able to access n8n using the subdomain n8n and entering in the domain that you find over here in the environment. The changes that you need to make in the n8n section of the Docker Compose YAML file are on every line where you see the variable either subdomain, domain name, or both. Now, instead of me having to manually replace every instance of subdomain and type in flow, and every instance of subdomain having to type out aipilgrim.com, or whatever your custom domain is, I can change every subdomain and every domain variable by just entering in a new value over here in the environment box. So for a domain name, I'm going to change that to aipilgrim.com. And for subdomain, I'm going to change it from n8n to flow. And if Hostinger did not auto-detect your time zone when you set up your VPS, well, you can change the time zone. If you're not sure what to put, you can always ask Kodee. And note, there is a line for the time zone, and this is a variable, so it's just looking over here in the environment box. Whatever you have set in the generic time zone is what is going to be referenced in the Docker Compose YAML file. In the generic time zone, well, it doesn't have anything to do with setting up a custom domain, but now you know. We are now on the home stretch. It's all easy from here. Step 6, we need to deploy the n8n Docker stack that we just edited. So what does it mean exactly to deploy the n8n Docker stack? Well, we just made a bunch of changes to the Docker Compose YAML file for the n8n stack, but the Docker container is still running. It has no idea that we made any changes at all. The way that you update a Docker container after making changes to the Docker Compose YAML file, there are two things that you need to do. And they're the same two commands that you'll see when you update n8n in the terminal. First, you need to stop the Docker container from running. Then you need to remove or to delete the old Docker container that contained the old Docker Compose YAML file. This one command, docker compose down, both stops and removes the Docker container. So once the old Docker container is removed, well, then you need to spin up a new n8n Docker stack that contains the updated Docker Compose YAML file, and you do that with this one command, docker compose up/t. So first it's down, and then it brings it back up. And for those of you who are still intimidated by the terminal, the good news is, because we edited the YAML file right in the Hostinger dashboard, we don't even have to go into the terminal to run those two commands. All we have to do is just scroll up on this page and click the button that says Deploy. Deploy does both of these commands, both Docker Compose down and Docker Compose up. So all we need to do is click Deploy. It's stopping, it's removing, and then it's going to spin up the new Docker container with the updated YAML file. Cool. The Docker containers have been deployed. I can see that the status is running. That's exactly what you want to see. And to confirm that the Docker Compose YAML file has been updated with the environment variables that we set, we'll click on Manage, YAML Editor. I'll go to the environment box, and there we have it. The domain name is set to my custom domain. The subdomain is Flow. I can see my SSL email. All the changes are there. We are now on to step 7. In order for our custom domain to work with a valid SSL certificate without getting any errors, we need to make sure that port 80 and port 443 are open on our VPS. And to check that, we're going to go into the firewall rules. To check the firewall settings and confirm that ports 80 and 443 are open, I'm going to come over to the sidebar, click on Security, and then select Firewall. Now, I showed you how to add firewall rules in the VPS setup tutorial, and I also have a complete tutorial on how to set up a firewall on your Hostinger VPS. So if you watched either of those tutorials and you set up your firewall rules, well, then you know that ports 80 and 443 are open. To check and make sure that ports 80 and 443 are definitely open, you're just going to click on the ellipsis, the 3 little dots, choose Edit, scroll to the bottom, you're looking for 80, it should say Accept under the action, and 443, we are good to go. There is only one more step to do, and that is to test out your new custom URL that it opens n8n securely in a web browser. I'm opening up a new tab. In the address bar, I'm going to type out flow, that's my subdomain, dot or period, aipilgrim.com. I'll tap enter or return, and it should open n8n. Here we go, return, bingo. And to confirm that our connection is secure and that the SSL certificate is valid, in Google Chrome, I'm going to click on this little icon in the address bar to view the site information. And there we have it. Our connection is secure. If I click that little arrow, I can see the certificate is valid. Nice. Now let's go back to the Hostinger dashboard. On the overview page, if I click the Manage App, this should no longer work. So if I click Manage App, there we have it, 404, page not found. Everything is working as expected, or not working in this case. When you add new apps and services on your VPS, so maybe you add a Streamlit app wrapped in a Docker container. When you want to create a custom URL, you're going to go to the DNS Manager. You're going to go to your custom domain name. That's the base or the root domain. You're going to click on Edit DNS. Now you just create a new A record every time you want to create a new subdomain. So you keep the type at A, enter in the name of the subdomain that you want. And this can be anything. So let's just say I want to call it chat. It's going to point to your VPS IP address. You can always find that right down here. So I can just copy it, Command-C, point it to, keep the TTL at 14400, click Add Record. Yes, I want to add it. Now we just created a new A record or a new subdomain called chat. It's not doing anything now. Then you're just going to edit the docker-compose.yml file for that app or service. You're going to deploy it by clicking on the deploy button, and then you're going to jump to step 8 and just test and make sure that your new subdomain in your custom domain is opening up the app just like it did with n8n. I am going to leave you with this tip, and I cannot stress this enough. But if there is anything that you are having trouble with when adding a custom domain, Kodee is your friend. Look in the bottom right corner, click on Ask Kodee. I'm telling you, Kodee will walk you through every single thing that you need to do in the docker-compose.yml file and help you until you get your custom domain up and running. And that is how you add your own custom domain to your Hostinger VPS. Adding your own custom domain will enable you to be able to create an unlimited amount of subdomains so you can create your own custom URLs to open up apps and services on your VPS such as n8n. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback for me, please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. But that is how you add a custom domain to your Hostinger VPS. My name is Mike Murphy, your AI handyman. Cheers.